So picture this, you're at the gym doing your typical upper and lower body, bis and tris, back and shoulders, or I would say legs, but you and I both know those chicken legs haven't seen leg day since Nam. But say you're there, and you often see these very athletic guys doing jumps, bounds, leaps, all these explosive activities, and it kind of intrigues you. You're like, man, that looks pretty fun. I wouldn't mind, maybe starting to do little jumps and everything. Then you look back and you remember how that buddy of yours was playing at an alumni basketball tournament and took one wrong land on a jump and tore his Achilles and...
He needs some milk!
Never mind. You go back to doing your bicep curls.
Super set! Super set! Super set! Super set!
What if I told you plyometrics are a great thing to include in your workout regimen, and there's a very safe way to start including plyometrics? Would you believe me? So, let's be honest with ourselves first. I want you to think of the last time you have honestly done a full sprint or a maximal jump. It's probably been a very long time. So with that being said, if you did go out and bust out 10 sets of wind sprints, followed by 10 sets of 3 vertical jumps, maximal intent, there is a higher chance that you would tear something. But today I'm going to show you a easy plyometric progression that you can utilize at the gym to start progressively overloading yourself to those more explosive movements in a safe fashion.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
So a lot of people think of plyometrics as these like jumping explosive movements, but there's actually an easy way to understand what a plyometric is. So a plyometric consists of 3 phases. 3 phases being your eccentric phase, your second one being your amortization phase, and your third one being your concentric phase. So picture this is my muscle fibers. When you contract, they go over one another. When they lengthen, they stretch out. The eccentric phase is going to be whenever the muscle is being loaded quickly, and what it's going to do is it's going to elicit what we call a stretch reflex. That muscle is being loaded quickly, just like a rubber band. Then, as that muscle is being loaded, just like if you were to have a rubber band and pull back, that elastic's being loaded. So the muscle fibers are being loaded with force and tension. Now this is where the amortization phase comes in. This happens whenever the muscle fiber isn't changing length, it's waiting to produce its force back in what we would call the concentric phase. So now the muscle has a rapid stretch, it's been loaded, it pauses for a second, and it reproduces that force to go back into what we call a concentric phase. So think of this as a depth jump, right? As you go down, the quads are loaded, they pause, and then they recontract very quickly to shoot you up in the air just like a jump. So now you understand what a plyometric is. Now I would be remiss if I told you that you must realize that this is a very gradual progression with plyometrics if you are not a very active person and you haven't been doing plyometrics to begin with. If you're a 35-year-old person that weighs 300 pounds and you haven't done a jump since high school, there's a chance that you could possibly tear something kind of getting into these a little too fast. So the idea is that it's a gradual progression that's going to allow some time for you to get acclimated to the jumps so that you're at less risk of an injury. The National Strength and Conditioning Association recommends that beginners start with 80 to 100 foot contacts per session. Now, a foot contact is considered when you jump and you land. So every land that you have is considered a foot contact. 80 to 100 is a pretty conservative number when it comes to athletes. When it comes to general population, people who haven't done a whole lot of exercise, it could be a little much, and also depending on what your background is with jumping and explosive movements like plyometrics. So when just starting, a great place to start is maybe half that, around 40 to 50 foot contacts per session. And the other thing that is often overlooked very much with plyometrics is the intensity. Are you giving maximal intensity with each jump, bound, leap? That's going to be a big factor that plays into how taxing these movements are on your body. So when we do a session of plyometrics, intensity is a very important factor. If you were to do 100 foot contacts at low submaximal intensity, it's not going to be that taxing. But if you were to do 30 foot contacts with maximal intention from a high depth jump, that's going to be much more taxing. Even though the foot contacts are lower, the intensity is going to play a very large part with how taxing these movements are. So when you're first starting, I recommend pay attention to the intensity as compared to your foot contacts. Don't get too caught up with how many jumps you're doing, but be mindful of the intensity. Now let's jump into some exercises. We're going to start with a little bit on the lower side, some easier kind of to introduce yourself to plyometrics, and as we get toward the end, we're going to get to a lot more advanced and more taxing plyometrics. First one up here is a band-assisted jump. You're going to hook a band up, and you're going to use it to help assist you jumping. Here is a seated box jump. You sit, you lean forward, put your weight over your feet, explode up off the floor. Next one is a drop land, so kind of getting you ready to that landing off of a higher surface. Lateral box jump. So we're starting sideways and we jump lateral to a box. This is your vertical jump or counter movement jump. Next one is a broad jump with a stick landing. Next one will advance is a repetitive broad jumps. So a depth jump from a higher surface, 18-inch, drop down, fast, back up. This is broad jumps from the other angle. Jump, land, continue on. These ones are called skater hops. Another good exercise for the lateral movement. Then we have the single leg lateral jump onto a box, double leg land, single leg box jump forward, what you call pogo hops for the ankles with a band assisted. Then we transition the pogos just to standing without a band. Notice with the pogos, there's not as much knee bend. It's going to be a lot more ankle. And then here they are again. Pogos from the side, less knee bend, as compared to your regular vertical jumps, where you're going to get a little more knee bend, get a little more quad activation with your regular vertical jumps. Broad jumps in repetition, going to increase the intensity. Box jumps with dumbbells, add a little weight. Take your ability to use your arms out of it, and then also get a little more power to produce from the quads. Bounds, forward bounds. Repetitive tuck jumps, another good exercise. Starting to get a little bit more to that advanced side, as you can see. Lateral, repetitive jumps onto a box, so you're getting that rebound effect. Single leg split jumps. Reverse bounds, as you can see, it's pretty difficult. I was having a tough time myself doing these. Single leg depth jump, probably one of the most taxing ones we're going to get here, depending on how high the box is. And also, what your intensity is like. I wanted to keep kind of touching on a little bit of this intensity aspect, right? Some of these exercises don't seem that difficult if you were to do them with way less effort. And then some seem very difficult if you were to put all out that you have in here. These last exercises we've seen, if you did with very, very low effort, are not that taxing. They're not that beneficial. So as compared to some of the beginner ones, the ones that are on that lower level, if you have an extremely high intensity doing these, they're going to be much more taxing. It's going to give you much more benefit. So like I said, one of the most important things with plyometrics is the intensity at which you do them. So to finish off, just remember, progressively introduce yourself to these exercises. Start with a sub-maximal isometric, so don't put all your effort into them right away. Get comfortable with just starting to increase how hard you're doing these plyometrics and take your time getting back into them. With that being said, thanks for watching. My name is Kiefer Huff with Huff's Physical Therapy and Strength and Conditioning, and thanks for watching.